Okay, Assalamualaikum. Very good evening, everyone. Thank you for spending your precious Friday evening with us. I know everyone dah ada plan nak balik kampung, nak travel pergi Langkawi semua. It's okay. Firstly, thank you PAM Next and PAM CPD Committee for organizing this event, this PAM graduate series online. And we have a very special speaker all the way from Australia. So please stay with us because I know he has some very interesting and amazing things to share with us. And I would like to remind all participants to take note of all the sign in and sign out code to get the CPD points. And also we will have a Q&A session at the end of this session. So type in your question in the Q&A box down there. Okay, please type in the Q&A box, not in the chat, because we might oversee your question there. And I have with me today Architect Hazrin, who will be co-moderating the session. And okay, Hazrin, how are you today?
Thank you, Atira. Assalamualaikum, and a very good evening to everyone. It is delightful to see such a huge crowd tonight, as I'm sure most of us took the opportunity to travel last weekend. So welcome back to those travelers, and let's all enjoy the talk. Our topic for today is Prefabkan Aje. Prefab or prefabrication, which I suppose most of us know, is a construction method of assembling components of a structure that is manufactured off-site. Usually these are done in factories. It is very similar to a production line in any industry. Thus, the term IBS or industrialized building system also widely used. The word Aje somehow implies that it is easy to do prefab, so to speak, or rather take it casually. So Adi should make it casual. Prefab offers various benefits, which includes it is quicker to do, it is very much cleaner and less labor intensive. However, prefab comes with multitude of challenges. Some of it involves modular design, as it is a prerequisite to make it feasible. The talk is hoped to explore and share the speaker's perspective in dealing with modular design, and perhaps he could share some of the lessons learned from his encounters. Our speaker for today, Mr. Ahmad Fathi, hail from City of Klang, started his architectural education at UiTM Shah Alam. Further, he went working at Kaz Architect and Anwar Saleh Architect. Later, he pursued for Bachelor of Architecture at University of Melbourne in 2003, where he had the opportunity in his thesis year to do a collaboration project with Glenn Murcutt, a highlight. Upon graduation, he has been working with MJS Architect and has been loyal with them since. Also, a loyal Liverpool supporter, I hope still the same.
Bahaya nanti seorang lari lah.
Adi, as friends call him, established his strong design flair early on, in tandem with his pursuit on exploring full utilization of BIM ecosystem. Today, as Associate Director at MGS, he had been in charge with numerous award-winning projects in Australia. So with that introduction, I suppose we all can't wait to hear his sharing. So without further ado, I pass the floor to Adi to proceed. So carry on, Adi. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum everyone. I have to change to a full screen mode, and I hope everyone can see the screen. So Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good evening to everyone, to all Malaysians, and I hope everyone's have a very good Friday, and hopefully everyone stay safe and healthy with their families. And I'm quite jealous when Atira and Hazrin mentioned about going. People in Malaysia start to travel to different state, and plus my family in Malaysia also start thinking about flying overseas. Whereas us in Melbourne here, today is our first day of freedom after a very long lockdown since June. So hopefully we all can move forward to a normal daily life from now on with the increase of the vaccination rate. And also, first of all, I would like to thank the organizer, PEMNEX, PEM CPD, for inviting me to represent MGS Architects Melbourne to this event tonight and giving me opportunity to introduce ourselves and talk about the prefab scene in Melbourne, Australia. And also, I would like to thank Atira and Azrin for the good introduction about me. And yes, especially Azrin is is actually my housemate in Melbourne. So without delaying, I'm just going to start the slide. So I'm just going to read this. This is our motto for the company. MGS Architects exists to create quietly brilliant places with longevity, adaptability that deliver daily value to the people who use them. So we are driven by an educated curiosity and a desire to do work that contributes to our clients' prosperity and the development of the inclusive city. So our work encompasses architecture, urban design, interiors, and also I forgot to add here the master planning. So this is us, MGS Architects, our firm located in an old red brick house in Melbourne CBD. As you can see there, maybe one of the audience here have been to Melbourne or maybe study in Melbourne. So this is the Flagstaff Garden, very close to Queen's Victoria Market, the touristy place. All tourists will go there. You know, that's like a must place to go for all tourists in Melbourne. So we have established ourselves as an architectural practice in Melbourne since 1985. So it's quite a journey for us, to be honest. So we got a fairly flat structure leading by 5 directors and 4 associate directors and other architects graduates, interior designers, urban designs, graphic designer, and a few admins. So all together, we make a team of 40, around 40-ish. And we are considered a medium-sized practice. And we work on various projects ranging from small to large projects from such as single dwellings, multi-res, or known as apartment, addition or renovation of heritage buildings. Recently, we do lots of multi-deck car parks and infrastructure works, such as train stations. And we do also retail works like interior design for the shops and restaurants. And we also do shopping malls and also the large scale master plan, such as for recently we won a few awards for Monash University. So what we do. So this is one of my first earliest project in MGS Architects. We won an award for this job for affordable housing in Melbourne. It's just located right next to the Victoria Market, very close to MGS office. So me as a that time as a young registered architect, I think it's very handy for me to just go to the site and I can just walk from office to the site very easily. So I can save time from there. And I think if everyone's or if everyone been to Melbourne, walking is quite normal there. Even you can walk 1 kilometer, feels like it's only like 100 meters. So this project starts in 2007. So it consists of a 59 units apartment that cater for low income, a single mom family, and a young starters. And these apartments are not for sale, they're just for rent. So the idea is this housing will facilitate and accommodate and provide accommodation to the low income group to start their life closer to their workplace, which is in the CBD. So we built this apartment on top of this former military training hall. And as part of the developing a new program up there, a new residential, we've also have to restore the building, and we reprogram the internal space, which is the hall there, to become a public use space. And I think until today, there's a few programs run by the City Council for the public. It's just a shot of the restored heritage hall, which normally used by the people of Melbourne. I think last time there's an event by the Malaysian group as well here for Hari Raya, which is quite nice. And this is the Mcintyre Drive social housing. So it's a social housing located in the coastal town of Altona, west of Melbourne. Melbourne is on the east, on the right side here. So this is probably about 15 kilometers from the Melbourne CBD. So for us, this project is quite unique with the size of this development that nestle among the low-scale residential neighborhood. So all around here, they're all just a single-story residence. And whereas us, we're occupying this site here, and it's quite a massive site compared to all this surrounding development. So we have completed this project in 2012, and alhamdulillah, we won the highest category of the national award in a multiple housing category. We win against all other private high-end multi-residential projects. And it's also the first in Australian history for social housings to win under this category. So we're proud of that. So given that the development is quite large compared to the surrounding houses, we cleverly break the facade. So each facade, each blocks there represent each dwellings, each apartments. And in fact, like some of these residents, like this guy here, when we interview him, he's proud with his house because he says that, oh, people can just identify my house by just pointing from the courtyard. So which is quite good. I think that gives them a sense of belongings to this residential development. And we express the vernacular surrounding using a repeated gable motif. And we're quite happy with the outcome of these projects. And plus, we're not just adding a new neighborhood in this suburb, but also we introduce a community activities such as a communal garden, which is down there, that encourage social interaction between the new and existing residents from around the site. And plus with this job, given that it's a social housing or so-called affordable housing, we managed to exploit the use of inexpensive materials such as fiber cement to integrate with the robustness of the metal roof and the facade cladding to give the sense of playfulness and articulate the facade facing a central communal space to give it a strong sense of community. So this is another project that we did, a Rosanna station. So this is actually our first elevated train station project for MGS. We completed this job in 2018. In this project, we actually have collaborated with Jacobs. Not sure if anyone knows Jacobs. Jacobs is a multinational, international company, quite large company that specializes in infrastructure works. They've got in-house engineer as well. The station design incorporates bold color to create a strong sense of identity while sensitively stitching the station into its existing leafy suburb of Rosanna. So Rosanna is actually a small suburb in the north of Melbourne, surrounded by all these single-story housing, and it's quite leafy, lots of green around the site. And we kind of came with the idea of introducing the bold color that blends with all the native flora and fauna around the site. So the station serves as the main transport hub for the Rosanna communities, and it's connecting the metro train from CBD with the local bus networks. So the ground plaza under the elevated railway station being utilized as a public open space. And for this job as well, alhamdulillah, we won the Australia Urban Design Awards, I think 2 years ago, or last year. I lost track with the COVID, sorry about that. Next job is the Swinburne University Technology College. I think they've got an architecture course in this university. So I'm not sure, maybe some of us will be coming when we study in this university. So it's located on the southeast of Melbourne, in the suburb of Hawthorn. So we have completed this project early last year, just right few months, probably 2 months before Victoria went into the first COVID lockdown. So for this project, we require to provide additional space inside the existing unused courtyard of the college. So the new space that we have to provide inside there are a new teaching rooms, few offices, and a very large labs for the robotic engineering department. And another brief that we have to meet is we require to maintain significant amount of daylight into all these new rooms and into the labs. So this photo here showing the facade of the building with a double height glass to allow sunlight into the internal space. And here, this is the ground lobby lobby of the building. So you enter from here. And then this is actually kind of, we call it the breakout zone where people meet before they enter the class. And behind that glass there will be the robotic lab where they have the, what do you call those arm? The KUKA arm. So I'm not sure if people are familiar with that or not. And this is a photo of the internal street around the new teaching room. So the teaching room, which is the classroom, here we call it teaching room, is actually been inserted in the middle of the existing atrium. And we treat the facade. The brick is actually coming from the existing building. And then we treat the facade around with a plywood cladding and have the new space in the middle. So this acts as the internal street around the new classroom, and we've received maximum sunlight from the skylight above. Sorry. So with this, we managed to squeeze 6 classrooms. So there's 3 classes stacked on top of each other. Yeah, it's quite a nice project. So this is the Russell Park Independent Living Units that we managed to complete early last year. It's actually complete pretty much around the same time with Swinburne Uni, just before the Melbourne lockdown. So it's quite unique project for this one because we have to develop a apartment on a narrow land right next to a train station, a railway line, and it consists of 35 dwellings. And the buildings, the new buildings, also required to respond to the heritage building neighborhood of the old 1869 Colonies Cottage, which is you can see there at the far end corner. And we have to think about how to deliver a high quality design and how to efficiently construct the buildings while maintaining comfort of the older residents that live around it. So the building facade facing the rail line also requires special acoustic treatment to ensure that the resident in the new building will not be affected by the noise generated from the train. So these are just another shots of the entry into the apartments. So we just introduce a brick facade and a few timbers as big timber doors, just to give a sense of domestic and a warm welcome to the residents. So I guess now we'll discuss about the main topic for this evening, which is mainly about a prefab construction scene in Australia, mainly in Melbourne. As usual, I'll start with the definition of prefab. It's actually a short for prefabrication, and it refers to any part of the buildings that has been fabricated at a place other than its final location, such as factory, yard, or can be a backyard. It's an umbrella term that covers a range of different systems and processes. So this is just a view of one of the modular factory in Melbourne. I believe this one here is a company called Fleetwood, and on the right side is a company called Modscape. So prefab comes in 2 different types. One is known as a 2D prefab, and the other one known as a 3D prefab. So they are, the 2D prefab means a small component, not like 2D means 2D, like a flat 2D. So that means just like a small component. They are the precast concrete panel, steel or timber frame, trusses, brick panels. This one here, like a brick cast on a precast concrete. And sometimes can be a balcony balustrade, a stair, like a stair flight steel stair in one piece, or a curtain wall panel, or a mechanical equipment for a plant room. And a 3D prefab is the large component, such as a large timber or steel structure. For example, like this bridge here. This is actually a bridge for a Rosanna station that we did. And then the most common product for the 3D prefab is the actual modular building, like this one here. This is one of the job by one of the modular company in Melbourne called Prefab. So it consists of a combination of all 2D elements into ones, including ceilings, floor finishes, built-in joinery, and fixtures. So essentially, it's actually ready to be used. So Prefab is actually it's not new. So it's been around for a long time. So this is the image of the Roman fort built by the Roman around AD 43. So they use a prefab timber to build this quickly in Britain. In fact, I think we as a nation, we also have our own prefab that can be found in our traditional Malay house. So I think we should be proud of that. And this photos here showing the first modular home in Australia, shipped from UK around, I think around 1850s. And majority of this prefabricated home was shipped to Victoria during the gold era, gold rush era. And they consist of a metal cladded wall on a timber frames and a metal roof. And they came to Australia as a flat pack on a ship, like a IKEA, no? Came as from a ship from UK to Melbourne via Singapore. So why prefab? So obviously, people, I think some of us probably already know about this. Why prefab? Obviously, with prefab, we can create a very high quality buildings because it's all made in a controlled environment in a factory. And plus is increased efficiency, precision, productivity, and especially nowadays where we can use a current software such as Revit and 3D printing technology with a robot arm and others. So that will increase efficiency and precision. And plus is actually 20 to 50% faster compared to normal construction due to its manufacturing and fabrication being completed parallel with the site preparation activities. So this will also minimize the risk of unfavorable on-site weather conditions. And as mentioned above, we can also prevent unnecessary delays and expenses resulted from unexpected weather. So if doesn't matter whether it's rain or not, they still can build in the factory. They probably will be whole on site, but the factory just keep manufacturing the building, whether it's rain or storm. Yeah, doesn't matter. And it's also a sustainable construction where they can reduce the construction waste and also recycle all the leftover materials. And with the prefab, we embrace the new technologies. So like I said, I mentioned before, we construct using robotic arms or use of new materials. Plus, we can also run a test of the product or system before we complete the installation and assembly on site, such as here, we normally do a water tightness test or thermal leakage test in the factory before we assemble everything on site. And prefab is also promote flexibility, which allow the build forms to respond to the need of today. Say, for example, the hospital can expand their treatment room for COVID patients. And prefab also allow for reuse and restructuring of the modular components and have ability for future expansions to meet user requirement. So when we talk about modular building, normally people will always think that the building will be square, the square, and always think looks like a shipping container. So obviously that's board for, I think architects will think like this is crap, having a container building, just a box, but that's actually wrong. So modular building, obviously need to be built within a certain size. Like here in Australia, the maximum modular that can be transported is a maximum 18-meter length by 4 meter. I just round up 4 meter high by 5.5 meter width. That's the size of the largest truck. And of course, it's also depending on the size of the road that lead to the subject site. So if we are doing a project in a rural area where you only have a very small, tiny road, so we probably have to break up the module into a smaller modular for easy transport. So as mentioned, designing in modular will obviously be constrained by limited size, but the design of a modular don't have to be boring box such as those shipping container. And they can come in various size and shapes with different external finishes as shown in this diagram. So they both essentially the same shape, but have a different kind of look and feeling. By just changing the external material, you can simply change the internal program and also give the occupants different feel when they sit inside the building. So it comes in boring shape like a rectangle, can be split into square or maybe have a bevel edge, angle, facade, trapezoid, steps, round, edge, curve, bend. And from all these 9 shapes, you can just combine them and make interesting building. So how does the modular breakout work? So this is just a few examples of the project by these 2 well-known modular builder in Melbourne, Arcade and Modscape. So on the left here is how they break up the buildings to I think about 5 module system. So it's a 2-story semi-detached townhouse made from a 5 modular system. So the blue, obviously, that's the longest one. And they also have the green, that's the staircase. So the staircase itself connecting 2 levels is built as in one piece, in one frame. So they model everything in Revit, and then after that they send it to the printer and then start cutting all these structural members and then assembling it in the factory. And on the right side is a project by Modscape. It's actually a school. So they break the plan into about 8 modules, and then don't have to be a box. You can introduce curved walls to the external facade and the internal passage to create some sort of interesting facade and also interesting layout to the building. So these are a few photos of the modular buildings built by the top modular contractor or builder in Melbourne. On the top left corner here is done by Arcade. Bottom here is a TAFE. TAFE is more like in Malaysia is probably a what do you call that, IKM. TAFE, TAFE College. And on top right corner here is a vertical school by Modscape in Sydney. It's a 4-story school. And the bottom right corner here is the school in Melbourne. So this is actually the facade of this plan. So as you can see that, without looking at this, just looking at this, but knowing that it's about modular, you think that they built this on site, but it's actually a modular, consists of 8 modules of building. And top left corner here is another schools, vertical schools by one of the modular builder in Melbourne called Fleetwood. So it's a 3-story anchoring by both precast concrete core, leaf and stair. And bottom here is by them too, Fleetwood, it's 2-story, so they're all modular. Top right corner here is the townhouse, semi-detached townhouse by Arcade. And bottom here is the image I've shown previously by Modscape. So as you can see here, they all, it's hardly recognized whether they modular or not, unless you know exactly. But obviously you guys know now since I told you. Yeah. So looking at this photo, we can tell that there's actually lots of school built in modular in Australia, especially in Melbourne and Sydney. That's because it's now becomes the most preferred construction method by the Australian state government. And it's due to its fast construction program. For example, like I mentioned before, the school can be built off-site in factory during the school term, and then ready for transport and assemble on site in short period of time during school holiday period. And then by the next term, the school is ready to be occupied and used by the students. So yeah, pretty interesting. And to be honest, I gained all this knowledge about prefab modular construction from my wife, Hasnila Bidin, and she had past vast experience working with all these top modular builders in Melbourne. She's actually working with those Arcade, Modscape, and Fleetwood, currently in Fleetwood. So I think she deserves some credit for helping me and MGS Architects, my company, to understand more about this type of construction. So now I will play short videos showcasing the construction of modular building in factory and assembly on sites by Arcade, Modscape, and Fleetwood. So this is one of Arcade project. So they build everything in the factory. It's the apartment in Melbourne. And you can see the size of the truck there. And obviously they have to transport those modules either at midnight or very early in the morning before the peak hours, because it will affect the traffic. And these apartments stack on top of an existing building to create additional space for the new resident. And I think this project consists of 4 modules. So a project like this normally take up to 2 months maximum from the start of manufacturing in the factory to full assembly on site. So that's actually very fast. And there you go, people celebrate. So the second video showcasing a project by Modscape is a vertical school in Sydney, the one I showed in previous slide. So they've constructed the 4-story school in the factory themselves. Consists of 20 modules as a whole. That's include the internal finishes, joinery and everything in there. So the advantage with having a modular construction in factory is that also we can run a pre-defects inspection for most of the interior works on site. And once completed, they'll just transport each module to site for final assembly and finally defect inspection as a permanent structure before handover to the client. And this third video is by Fleetwood, constructing of the 3-story school. So the building consists of 30 modules plus a precast concrete stair and lift core anchoring both ends of the buildings. So from the start of this video till the end, this actually only took 2 days on site. And then probably opening ceremony a couple of days later. All right. So I hope everyone's learned something from those 3 videos. So now we're back to MGS projects. So we did attempt to adapt prefabrication and modularization in some of our projects. For example, the Swinburne University of Technology building TC, because we can see the opportunity to do that in this job, given that it's just a couple of classes inside the existing courtyard. So, and first we propose to break the build form to multiple prefab elements, such as the teaching rooms. The classes consist of 6 classes, and then we think that the stairs can be a prefab too, and the floor can be made from a split floor panel, and the steel frame can be built offsite as a 2D prefab with the glazing, and the front facade here can be built offsite as well as a panel, and plus this entry canopy as a separate element. But unfortunately, we didn't end up building this job in modular due to the prolonged program of the design development documentation that end up clashing with the construction program, and plus it's actually affecting the timing of the new student intake. So that's a lesson learned in there. So as a lesson to the client and to us, as we need to be aware and adhere to the design and construction program, and obviously not making any late major change to the design once it's locked after schematic stage. Otherwise, you won't be able to build it in modular. So this is another one. We try to make Russell Park apartments into modular. This is the one that located next to the railway track. We thought that this will be the best outcome and alternative for the client to achieve a quick and safe construction method to build these apartments in a narrow plot of land right next to the railway line. And again, unfortunately, our attempt doesn't work, and we didn't get a chance to explore this project further in prefab modular because the project was tendered as an open tender and won by a conventional contractor based on the costs. So modular, just to let everyone know, modular doesn't mean cheap. Cheaper than conventional. It's not really cheaper than conventional. It can sometimes be quite costly, but things that we can guarantee is that you definitely can achieve a high quality product compared to the on-site construction. So when it comes to compare the cost between modular and traditional construction, obviously we have to factor all other costs, all other factors such as delay due to weather, that's cost equal time, equal money. Total construction time between building from scratch on site versus the simultaneous construction that run parallel between factory and site preparation. So that's, I think, the advantage of modular. But obviously, if we not following a program, and if we do a major design change quite late in the project, then that's obviously will affect the program. Doesn't matter conventional project or modular, but definitely it's worse for a modular project. And this is the Rosanna station again. For this job, we managed to have a combination of conventional plus prefab and also a modular construction method. So the whole project consists of multiple prefab elements, such as the concrete railway bridge here, precast panel on the lift core, and also this chevron cladding panel, and also a couple of buildings at the ground floor here, ground level. So this slide shows the precast concrete panel up to 18-meter high for the lift core, connecting the ground to the elevated stations platform. So these are all considered as 2D prefab components, and built offsite and drawn in Revit so that we can achieve accurate sizes and everything. And then we coordinate this with the contractors so that they can just build offsite and transport to site and then just assemble it. I think it took maybe 2 days just to erect this concrete, which is I think quite fast compared to block work. And this photo here shows the prefab chevron panel with various colors, the bold colors that I mentioned previously. So the colors been applied offsite in a controlled environment. Offsite means in a factory, so that we can achieve a very high quality finish to the panel, and just to make sure that we meet all the painting standards requirement to ensure that the panel is durable enough to last long. So this third image shows the 3D prefab elements at the ground level. So it's, on the left here is the ticket and the station office, and on the right side here is the retail ports. So the ticket station office consists of a 4 breakup module. So they all transport to site separately. And then the retail itself consists of one small box of the module. So to meet the design intent and give precast look to the face of this module, we have used the glass reinforced concrete, or known as GRC, as a facade treatment to this modular building. That obviously by using GRC, it'll take out the weight of the actual concrete, and so that it can easily transport to site. It looks heavy from this photo, but it's actually very light. I think this is probably my last slide. So I think one of the questions from Hazrin just now is what's lesson learned in modular design? So obviously, like I mentioned before, we need to make sure that we have a pre-planning and integration, which is essential. So in order to take advantage of the potential costs and time-saving benefits of the modular construction. And also we have to know when to use modular construction. We have to know, it needs to be on the right jobs, on the right project. And we should only use it when it offers clear advantages over conventional construction. Say, for example, if we, like school, there's a clear advantage there to use modular, given that it's always same module size for the class. And obviously we're dealing with a intake every year, and you want to make sure that the projects run simultaneously with the site works. So by the time people have the kids have their day off for the school holidays, we can just use that 2 weeks period just to set up the building on site and then be ready for the next term. Another one is climate issues and variation of the module and the availability of the trades. That should be factored when considering modular construction. So yes, again, we have to think about the availability of the trades. Sometimes you can't do everything if there's not enough resources. So yeah, that's one of the factors that we have to consider. And modular construction may be most beneficial when the same unit plan can be used, especially for a large-scale project, to save pre-planning costs. I think like in Australia, I don't think of course, it's going to be a big benefits to have lots of repetition in the project. But if you look at the previous slide, most of them are almost custom. Again, you can always vary the facade, so it looks different, even though the main frame are similar. And with modular design, we have to allow some design flexibility at conceptual stage, and with consideration to modular sizes and building elements that can be prefabricated or built as a modular, so that this will allow the project to be tendered as either conventional or modular construction. Against that will give options to the client, so they can either approach the conventional contractor or a modular contractor, so that give them options. And of course, there's a benefit between both. And so another one is you have to collaborate early with all the relevant consultants, including if we can have the builders on board early, that would be a bonus. And with the current technology, we should utilize BIM building software such as Revit or others, so that we can achieve accurate and efficient building documentation, coordination, and construction. And lastly, always log the design early to avoid major change. So I don't think people want to change design at last minute. I think that's about it. Thank you very much, everyone.
Cool. Yeah, cool. Thank you, Adi, for sharing your knowledge and experience about prefab and modular construction in Australia. It's really interesting to see the wide range of projects attempted by MGS and the prefab companies, Arcade and others, doing modular construction. My first question is, there's a question here. Is a prefab somehow regulatory required, or is it still optional in Australia, in Victoria at least?
I think I did mention that in the slide before. It's not a mandatory, but some state government start to make modular as their preferred construction method, especially to build the school, given that it's fast and and quick, and they can also do the defect inspection both in the factory and on site, so they don't have to waste time. So imagine like you can do the defects in the factory, you don't have to wait for the weathers to be good. You can just go to the factory and then inspect everything, and then you just do the second final inspection when they finish on site. So yeah, to that question, it's not a mandatory. So it's depends on the project, depends on the client, and also depends on the budget.
Yeah, I think I can relate with the school projects. I've been involved in several school projects, especially in Kelantan. Musim tengkujuh, hujan, and then project delay lama, and I can see how with the right contractors, with the right teams, maybe we can achieve these prefabricated schools in Malaysia, especially, right? Okay. I can imagine, boleh bayang tak sekolah atas lori from the factory bawa pergi site and then just assemble there. We can imagine that lah in Malaysia punya highway nanti one day.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Next question. How long does it take for the construction at site? Okay, for example, the simple house that you show in the video. That's one of the questions from our audience.
Yep. So that question, just the construction timing, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. How long does it take normally, for a simple house?
At site.
At site. If it's not a custom house, no custom design, maybe choose from a catalog, probably less than a month. So
less than a month.
Yeah. Say for example, I want to because I live in a 1970 house, and then I think that tomorrow I want to have a new house. So I just go to the architects or these builders, and then select a few range of the ready-made design from them, and then obviously sign the check, and then maybe think about where to live the next few days, not week, days. So and then they start building the house in the factory, and you still living in the same house, and then probably 3 weeks later or 2 weeks later, because it's like less than 1 month. So 2 weeks later, they give you a call to set up a date for them to transport and install it, on your site. And then you probably have to get away for a week, go grab holiday somewhere, and then by the time you're back, all done.
Adi, going back to the first question, it's
Mhm.
it's not mandatory and it's optional. But are there any incentive given by the government if you do prefab? Any incentive per se?
I believe in Australia, no. No,
No incentive at all.
no incentive. It's a choice. It's a choice. Yeah.
Okay, I have
choice.
my next question from the audience. It's a
I wish
make
there's
it
incentive.
I combined the questions, two-part questions.
Mhm.
Have you deal any prefab in sloping or inclined sites? And then the other question is, do you somehow encounters any situation where you have to convince the client to do prefab? And if so, how do you normally go about convincing them to do prefab?
Yes, I think I answered the second question first because that seems easy to answer. To convince client, I think here in Australia, normally probably the same thing in Malaysia. If you want to convince the client, first you have to show them the projects, example, maybe bring them to few modular projects. I think like from client perspective, normally they want to make sure that if they lives or they occupy the modular buildings, they want to make sure that they feel safe. They want to feel that the structure all strong, not flimsy. I think like in Australia here, we use lots of lightweight material, like lightweight frame and everything. But yeah, like one of my clients before, we tried to convince him to use a lightweight prefab wall versus a block wall. So we just bring him to site, one of our projects, and then just show him, okay, this is the difference. Just by knocking the wall, you can tell the difference. But he seems happy because he thinks, oh, it's actually no different between the lightweight and the block wall. So it's all about experiencing the project. That's how you convince the client. And after that, obviously, you have to go through with the design. And clients always talk about costs. And like I mentioned before, for modular, it can be cheap, it can be pricey. It depends on what clients want. The requirement depends on the finishes, and also it depends on the site itself, where it's located. So this brings to the first question, back to the first question. So if the site is on slope, for example, or maybe a contaminated site with lots of asbestos, or maybe on top of the quarry, like one of my current project is on top of a quarry, which is on top of a rubbish pile. So, client must aware that the cost is actually not the building, it's actually the site. So, doesn't matter you build modular or conventional construction. Normally you spend more money on the site. First you have to make sure that the site is properly retained. If it's on a slope, you have a good retaining wall. Make sure you get a good structural engineer. Yeah. So, is that answer the question?
I hope so. Yeah. I
Takut
mean,
melirik sikit because it's a Friday night,
Okay,
and here I'm already 9:54 p.m.
Just to add to you mentioned
Sorry,
about the
coffee.
site, right, Adi? So there's one question from the audience, an anonymous question. Okay. Recently, Melbourne have been struck with the earthquake. Okay, so there's one question. Is it natural disaster proof?
Good question. Very hard question. To be honest, I'm an architect. I went to a prefab convention few months before COVID. I actually asked the contractor myself about this question. And the answer is, the answer is, I think for if it's just for like 2-3 story building, it's probably not a problem. Yeah, the structure itself can sustain the seismic impact, but obviously if it's a tall building, there'll be a extra engineering effort by the structural engineer. I read a few articles from Melbourne Uni. because they're still doing a research about how we can build a modular modular high rise that can sustain the seismic impact. So I'm sorry that I can't give you a full question about this because I'm not a structural engineer. Because I'm afraid that if I give you the answer, then the structural engineer won't have a job.
That's a safe answer. That's a safe answer.
More
Okay,
challenges to them.
a question from Moon Bin Cheng. In one of the proposed design, the staircase was a combination of steel and concrete.
Yes.
Can you elaborate more on this construction method and the design? Is it something like on deck?
Yeah, that's on deck is you're talking about the steel as a formwork.
Yes,
and they just pour concrete on top of it.
Yes.
So that's one thing. That's a common one. Another one that normally we use for the train station project. The steel structure, form as a prefab stair flight and landing, including landing and everything. And then the tread itself made out of precast concrete. So we install the steel first, the steel frame first, and then we bring the precast concrete tread. Probably about 150 by 280 or something like that. That's a minimum size, and then just stack it on top of the frame, and then just bolt it on site.
Okay, I hope that answers the question from our audience. Okay, there's another interesting question by Dayando. Has there been an issue with water? I mean, like water leakage, because seeing some designs are stacking on top of each other. So what are there any issues with the plumbing or leakage?
Yep. As mentioned before, so that's a good question. There's like in Australia here, we like architects, we have to make sure that none of those issues happens once the buildings, once we hand over the buildings, because otherwise, probably the same in Malaysia, you'll get sued. So good thing about prefab is that you can obviously do the tests in the factory. So you do the test first of the system, so you make sure that there's no leakage and everything all solid, all gonna be perfect. And then we do so many tests, water tightness, air tightness, thermal using the scan. I think in Malaysia probably you don't really use lots of insulation because it's already quite hot. I think insulation is good, just to keep the heat away and keep the cool air, the aircon air inside the building. So here we do all those tests in the factory. So like in the previous videos before about that school, so they build everything in the factory and they do all the tests. Architects went to the factory, do all the inspection, almost exactly like what they did on site, and then they repeat the same thing again when they do the final installation on site. So that's normally resolved for any issues.
So do they have like macam for example Malaysia barang keluar kilang ada chop sirim? Kalau prefab houses ada tak macam chop, okay, this is certified, is it the same as like our CCC or something like that?
No, tak boleh chop.
Certified
here we have an independent consultant called building surveyor. So they're the one that certified all the works. So architects, we certify our works, but then but the building surveyor certify everything, including
all the
engineers,
all those tests you've done in the factory.
Yes, correct.
Correct.
So they do the final ticks on paper.
Okay.
And plus we always build our building according to Australian standards, and we have this thing called national construction code. I think like Malaysia always call it by law. From UK, but in Australia we
ada Malaysian standard.
We just very picky about this, like Aussie always picky, like they always want to have their own standards. Even like during COVID, I think compared to Malaysia, you guys already have reached 80%, more than 80% double dose. We just reached 80% single dose and everyone's partying.
Okay, There's a one question from Facebook. We also live on Facebook. Okay.
Yeah.
How much is the cost difference between conventional and prefab in Australia? Cost difference lah. Maybe estimate lah macam mana berapa banyak percentage.
Yeah.
Banyak,
It's
mana lagi
actually
mahal.
very subjective, that one. It can be cheaper or can be costly, because with prefab, the difference between prefab and normal construction, with normal construction, you can rely on a cheap labor. Obviously, I think Malaysia's have lots of resources of a cheap labor, whereas here in Melbourne, you don't have cheap labor, but that's where prefab probably comes into a place where it can be slightly, more cost effective. We don't call it cheaper, probably more cost effective. Like say, for example, in a normal two-story house, like or maybe those semi-detached houses that I've shown before, that one, just to build those 2 units with maybe 3 bedrooms per unit for both, that's probably cost about 800,000 Australian dollar. So that's probably comes to, in terms of per square meter, maybe about 3,000 or 4,000 per square meter. But when we say that in Australia, when we build something like the houses, those kind of thing, we include all the built-in furniture, like the one on my background here. This is one of our recent projects, but not a modular. But yeah, this is actually a social housing for crisis. It's actually a crisis housing for problematic people. So suppose like we build cheap because we know that they're gonna tear everything, but yeah, we give them something good so that they value, and then the cost normally increase because we include all the built-in joinery. And I think like in Australia, even if you build apartment, it comes with the kitchen, oven, a wardrobe, everything's ready, carpet. You only bring your mattress and maybe a few sofa, couch, or maybe TV if you need some entertainment.
Yep, it's true. I think we have time for another 2 questions, Hazrin.
Yeah, I think I bring up one question,
Okay.
and then Atira we wrap up.
Okay.
I think I would like to take a leap further, a niche area of 3D printing. Although 3D printing in building is still early stage.
Yes.
I can see there's a parallel development between prefab and 3D printing technology, and vast potential on utilizing them together. So do you agree on this notion in the future, or can you elaborate on your thoughts?
Definitely 100% agree. So the 3D printing don't have, you don't have to, be like China where you print the whole building, because obviously, we as architects, we want to have our touch. Human touch is important. So you don't want to have a robot build everything for us. But where 3D printing comes handy is where they build some maybe intricate module. Say, for example, one of our, I don't think I showed it in my slide, maybe in the next one, if I have opportunity. So we, like MGS, we love to build building with bricks. So sometimes our facade, we introduce, I think probably, like the Russell Park, for example, we've got all those articulated bricks, and some of the bricks are custom bricks. So, to get that kind of bricks, we have to experiment. So we use, in the first place, we use 3D printer in the office to print the block itself, and then play around with it, make our own Lego version of Lego. And then once we have that, you present to the client, and say, yes, good, interesting. And after that, come to the cost. But normally clients that appreciate design, they don't say anything about cost. They just say, you do it, we trust you, and we know it's going to be, we're going to achieve a good outcome, just proceed. So we do that, and then obviously the brick manufacturer will be interested. They race to obviously get the job, because they see this as opportunity for them to innovate, create a new product for them. So yeah, and then they have all these tools, the 3D printer in their factories. So they just, from there, they build it as a custom brick for our jobs. And if there's a demand, they'll build more and more. So, and then it becomes norm. It just becomes off-the-shelf item. So
Tira, maybe last question for you, Tira.
Okay. From Mr. Badro Rija, what is your opinion about CLT structure? I think it's cross-laminated timber structure to build a
Ah.
high-rise or tower with modular floor plan and suitability with the glazing facade.
Interesting. I think in Australia, the highest CLT building is probably only up to maybe 10 story. That was by Lendlease. I think Lendlease either in Sydney or Queensland. Yeah, I mean, it's good. More sustainable, obviously, with timber, less carbon. I think we've also got 2 projects currently in construction documentation. Construct using CLT timber, and of CLT timber, yes, correct. Yeah, but the issue with timber, there's no issue in terms of architectural wise, aesthetic, looks good, everything nice. But obviously you have to make sure that you have a highly collaborated documentation or model among consultants, like architects. You obviously you have to take extra steps to coordinate and handle everyone, because not all consultants would like to spend time like architects. We tend to design all the way to bolt and nuts sometimes, because it's our passion. Yeah, and then with the timbers construction like CLT, like in Australia, for example, we do lots of fire engineering to it, because we know that it's prone to fire. So obviously that you have to take that into consideration. Yeah, the buildings obviously will be a bit more costly compared to normal construction. I think from my memory, based on my current project here, it's a school project, one of the private school in Melbourne. It's probably 1 million or 2 million higher than the normal construction. So that's 2 million Australian dollar. So like 6 million more.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's a client's choice. I think for that, even if you try to convince the client and the client say no, yeah, you're not gonna go down that path. It's all client preference.
Okay. Do you want to take another question before we end, Adi?
Okay.
Satu lagi soalan. Okay.
Friday night.
Yeah. Okay.
First day of freedom.
Okay.
Yes.
Another interesting question by Zhen Yong Hu. For timber construction, how did you clear the fire submission? Macam kita UBBL kan, ada all those fire requirement. What are the special requirements for timber, and how do you clear that? Yeah.
Not sure, but probably my answer is probably different than Malaysian situation. Like but still we have to go through the we call here FRV, Fire Regulation Victoria, MFB. Is it Malaysia panggil apa? Bomber. So obviously you have to go through that, but we normally have fire engineering consultant on board, so they will obviously assist us and provide a report about fire engineering solution. Say whether they will tell us whether we need to provide sprinkler to the building or not, depending on the distance of the egress, whether we need maybe a drencher on the window, those kind of thing. And then I think another thing that we have to meet, one of the compulsory requirement nowadays in Melbourne, I think that's because of all of what happens to those building in UK, and one just recently on fire in Melbourne. I'm not sure if everyone aware. It's called a cross building in Docklands. So we have to make sure that we don't.
That one is timber.
No, that's not timber. That's made from alucobond. Not really alucobond. It's alpaca from China. So it's a substitute product.
It's cladding. It's
the cladding. Yeah, so it's like a so if
like
it's timber, so you have to do extra fire engineering. So this consultant, fire engineer, he will provide a report, and obviously go through with the building surveyor that certify the details and everything. And then both architects, fire engineer, and the building surveyor will have to present it to the fire brigade, and just go through all the aspects, things that we did differ from a normal construction, say like timber, for example. We have to demonstrate to them how we mitigate all this issue, like installing the sprinkler throughout all the exit paths, probably more alarm than usual, those kind of thing. Yeah, it's just more all about protection.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
Adi,
how
thank you.
that's how we
Okay,
resolve it.
okay. Okay, thank you, Adi, for sharing all these very interesting projects in Melbourne. And I do have to admit that Melbourne have quite a few, not a few lah, a lot of interesting and unique buildings. But I've been there quite a few times masa I study dulu and always been fascinated by Melbourne. But yeah, I still love Sydney more. Okay, yeah, I think we have come to the end of our session for today. Okay, thank you, Mr. Ahmad Fardi, and we wish you all the best in your future as Associate Director in MGS Architects, award-winning.
One of the questions here is next in the near future is 3D printed house. Will it kill prefab? Ha ha. No, it's not. 3D printed house is a prefab.
Yeah, it goes parallel. It goes parallel.
It's got parallel. Yeah, you have to both support each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Before maybe everyone after this you can find Mr. Adi in Facebook, or do you have social media?
I'm not that. I'm a bit low profile.
Okay, you can just email him for any question, or if you want to get to know him more. Okay. So before we close the session, I would like to remind our graduate members to sign up for tomorrow's Future List event. So we will post the link here. It will be good if everyone can sign up for this event, because we will have a very interesting session tomorrow. And what else? Thank you for joining this PEM Graduate Series. As usual, PEM webinar, we have the sign-in code and sign-up code. Please take note of all that of this code and put it in the questionnaire form. I think the link is already in the chat box. And what else, Hazrin? Any last word?
I don't know. Maybe before we end our session, I would like to thank again Mr. Adi for his insight. It's been a pleasure having you today. Yeah, like Atira mentioned, most of us always have the perception that prefab will be repetitive and boring. But meticulous planning and injection of design rigor, award-winning design is possible with prefab. So it's always refreshing to hear from our local talent abroad, macam Adi ni. It shows that we are not short of talent and we are at par with the rest to compete globally.
Ya, insya boleh.
Good job, Adi.
Insya
So
boleh.
thank you Atira for having me as a
everyone.
co-moderator. It's been my pleasure. Stay safe and travel safe, everyone. Have a nice weekend. Okay, Adi.
Alright. Okay, jumpa lagi.
Jangan merdeka sangat Melbourne tu. Follow the SOP, you know.
Besok hujan. Tak boleh. Alright, see you everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.